This conference will now be recorded.
Sure will. Commissioner Ayla,
Here.
Commissioner Hutchins,
Here.
Commissioner Cassidy,
Here.
Vice Mayor Cos,
Here.
and Mayor Beasley.
Here, let's please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, see the agenda before you, or any additions, deletions, or modifications to the agenda? Hearing none, someone make a motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Motion second, any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Motion carries. All right, Betty, it's public comment, and you're the only public.
I just came up to find out what's going on.
All right, well, fantastic, thanks for coming. All right, public comments closed. Moving on to the approval of proposal from Evergreen Solutions LLC. Lynn?
All right, we have two new proposals. The first one in your packet should be dated, well, it looks like it's dated April 3rd. This study includes, the proposal dated April 3rd would conduct a compensation and classification study for just the 9 job classifications that are not part of the police and dispatch, and update the employee handbook. The comp and class would be completed by June 10th to ensure information is available for the FY25 budget, and the proposal for that is $14,000. The proposal dated April 2nd would conduct just the classification study on all employees, including police and dispatch, and update the employee handbook. This would be reviewing the job descriptions, the FLSA classification for all of the town's 15 job classifications, 1 in the manager's department, 5 in the clerk treasurer department, 1 in the building department, 2 in public works, 2 dispatch, and 4 police department jobs. That cost is not to exceed $12,000 and proposed to complete the classification study within 3 months. Now, a reminder, the last meeting, the original proposal included doing class and compensation for all the employees at $9,500, benefits comparison at $2,500, and a handbook update for $5,000. If we wanted to do the class and comp for everyone and the handbook update, that is $14,500. So.
Lynch, I just want I think the addition is wrong there, isn't it? 17,000 total for the original?
We were told it was 19,000.
19,000.
Well, the benefits comparison,
14,500.
the benefits comparison was only part of last week's proposal. They're not, it's not included in either one of these.
Right.
So basically, we're saving $500 by going from 30 employees to 9.
There was also an
Yeah,
additional
you're right,
2,000 as an opt-in if we wanted them to do a second site visit, which took the comp and class from 9,500 to 1,150. So the 19,000 last week included all 3 add-on options, or all 2 add-on options, and a second site visit. So
Okay,
that-
but to Ainer's point, this is 17,000, the total for all 3 of these.
The one called original.
Right,
the
so,
original
but I said if we don't do
Don't do
the
what?
benefits comparison. So
Okay.
to give you a comparison of the comp and class and handbook update for all employees,
Yeah.
including PD, versus the comp and class just for non-PD, it actually ends up only being a $500 difference.
Which sounds kind of skewed to me.
I understand, but that's why I wanted to make sure that you guys understood the price.
Okay, so basically what we're looking at for, this is the exact same proposal basically as last week, but
Except-
just 9 employees, not 30.
No, it doesn't have a
No, 9
second site.
classifications.
Well, it doesn't have the benefits
Not
comparison.
15. The PD is 6
Okay.
of our job
Okay,
classifications.
got it.
I'm totally confused.
The April 3rd proposal is the whole thing that we looked at last week, but
Minus the
just
PD.
minus the police department.
And minus.
And
the
we're
benefits
saving, and it's $500 less.
Well, remember the math is wrong on original. So
Yeah,
So
the
it
top
doesn't-
one's supposed to be
Just
17,000.
cross the,
Comparison
cross
is
the benefits
14.5,
comparison
yeah.
off, because that's not considered in either one of the new
Right.
ones.
why would we compare 14,500?
Down below, there's no benefits comparison. The math was wrong up there, but they should have just had benefits comparison taken out.
So I'm still confused myself. I thought we were just looking to get a handbook brought up to date and just a brief description of the 6 or 9 employees that we have. And I don't know how expensive these things should be, but it seems like a lot. And do you think it's a lot of money?
I think it's in line with what they normally cost, actually, well, for an organization our size. Larger organizations for just the comp and class would spend anywhere from 25 to 50,000.
Were we not thinking about contacting adjoining neighborhoods and seeing what their comp and class was, or is that, did I miss that?
We would, if we go with proposal 2, which is just the classification and the handbook, yes, that's what we would do. I had
For
a
comp.
member of the commission reach out and ask if I could also find out what it would cost to do comp and class. So compensation for just the 9 employees, classification, or for the 9 positions, classification for all 15 classifications, and the handbook. So what you're looking at, your original proposal was 15 classifications, 15 classifications comp study, and the handbook update, minus the benefits comparison, 14.5. The April 2nd is 15 classifications updates. and
Wait,
the
stop,
handbook.
stop. The top one was 9,
No, it's 15
No.
classifications.
so
That one is
15 class, yeah.
15 class, 15 comp, and the handbook.
Why do we need classifications on 15? I have a
Well,
bigger
that's,
question.
that's why we have
had
that,
the reproposal.
that's
We're
why
not
we
gonna
had
do
the
it-
April 3rd
We're not gonna do the
proposal.
class on the police. 'Cause-
Right, but
Yeah.
here's my question. So we got one employee who is making quite a bit in overtime. Do legally we need to reclassify that person, or can we just say, hey, no more overtime?
You would legally need to reclassify that.
And you know
Can I-
that for a
We
fact?
would have
Yes.
exposure.
Can I ask a question about that? So I went back, I brought all my budget notes with me, and I went through everything. We never had a conversation about exempt versus non-exempt. I didn't know there was a distinction, and that our highest, next highest paid employee is a non-exempt, meaning she gets overtime. There's not even an overtime number in here for her. Like, how were we supposed to parse that out?
There is an overtime number in the clerk treasurer budget. It has been exceeded.
Oh, well, there's your answer, Caroline. It's been exceeded.
How would we have known to look at that and ask a question about it, is my question. I don't like surprises, and that was a surprise.
I understand that. You wouldn't have known. I didn't realize that that employee was going to expend significantly more overtime and that it was going to be an issue moving forward.
So the question is, why is suddenly 2023 or 24, whatever you're looking at on overtime, why did her overtime suddenly skyrocket?
Because we're still doing the conversion to the new software, and that's been a good portion of her overtime, is her learning the new system while doing the job, and she's not really confident in it, so she ends up spending more time here every day.
So Lynn, when she wants
This is a
to,
problem.
or when she feels that she needs to spend overtime, do you have to approve that? I mean, in advance, do you have to
That
say,
has not been the way town policy has been.
how many people do we have that are eligible for overtime right now?
If you look at the last, I think it's the last page, or the next to last page of your packet, it is the positions and our classifications. Now, keep in mind, the assistant town clerk is not.
So is anyone marked hourly, can get overtime?
Anybody that's marked
Says
hourly
non-exempt.
or salary non-exempt, as I noted at the bottom of that page,
Okay,
is
so it's
eligible
two.
for overtime.
These two guys.
I really would like, if you could please point out to me where in the budget that overtime number is. This
So
is for
Lynn-
human resources.
Lynn, while you're doing that,
under human resources.
so is this the only material overtime that we've really had to incur as for the finance director because of software conversion?
There is overtime in page. Overtime right here. This line item.
$2,000.
Actually, that line has long been exceeded in that department. There is an overtime.
So where'd you get the money?
We are shifting from other things.
Okay,
Should we change the policy then, that any overtime be approved by the town manager?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
You can change
I mean-
that policy, but that's not going to change the fact that we should legally change the classification of the job. We also have a clerk that should actually be exempt and is classified as non-exempt. The deputy clerk should also be classified as exempt, not non-exempt. Those are jobs that, because of their traditional duties administratively, which I tried to provide you the FLSA information, are normally considered to be salaried non-exempt.
So Lynn, that's what the study would go ahead and justify
That is what the
change.
yes,
Right.
that's what the classification study would
Separately,
do.
we're also separately saying, if we're gonna be having any material overtime, we should probably change our policy so that in advance, because then that gives you the opportunity to say, you know, we're not gonna do it, we'll just spread the work out, we'll take longer to get the software done, or whatever.
Correct.
You've got that choice.
so I got two questions because I'm just getting more and more confused. I just put a mark next to town clerk and deputy treasurer as non-exempt.
That's their current classification.
Okay.
They should be exempt.
And then up top, deputy town clerk is non-exempt. So once they become exempt, there's no overtime.
Correct.
Okay. And what does that cause though? I mean, we got the town clerk sitting here.
What does that cause
If
them?
Kelly's depending upon overtime because it was part of the job when she moved into it and it suddenly evaporates.
I can tell you Kelly's not, because until we started talking about this last week, Kelly didn't even realize she was eligible for overtime.
Good, stay like that.
The same with the deputy clerk.
Okay, so,
I mean, the
Real quick.
reality is jobs are they're either exempt or they're non-exempt in terms of
it.
what the job is.
And does it mean
We
there are more
haven't had
benefits?
them reclassified, you know, but we need to have them reclassified, so we've got justification for moving them into that other status.
Why can't we just reclassify?
Well, we'd have risk if we have somebody who's qualified to do that, then we've got basis in case somebody's sued. They could, you know, people can always bring a suit and say, I should have been paid overtime. And if we say, well, we just arbitrarily changed your class, that doesn't have nearly as much,
Okay, makes
you
sense.
know.
So-
I'm less worried about employees suing and more worried about the Department of Labor, who tries to pick X amount of employees in each classification in a state each year to go in and do a Department of Labor audit. And if they say, well, that position should have been exempt and you were paying overtime, there could be fines. But far worse, if a position was classified as exempt and should have been non-exempt and you weren't paying them overtime, the fines are tremendous.
So what does
So
it
it
cost
just
the
gives us better- it
town?
just
Like
gives us-
exempt versus non-exempt? Are there certain benefits that go with being exempt that non-exempt are not entitled to? Like what?
Exempt employees are expected to work an average of 40 hours a week. They can work more without additional compensation.
So I have a question for you.
Yes.
You have an employee who is getting tens of thousands of dollars in overtime to learn the software. I thought
I would say
that
that employee has been getting tens of thousands of dollars in overtime routinely for several years.
So it's not due to the software then?
That
I
is,
thought you said there was a spike.
this year it is due to the software. I was expecting her to be working fewer hours and not need to be doing the overtime this year, so I did not increase that department's overtime budget. That
So-
has not been the case.
So past budgets would have also had, not past budgets, but past actuals would have
Past
had.
actuals would have
overtime?
had
Yeah.
overtime
Nobody noticed it.
attributed to the
Well, no,
treasurer's
But
department.
it doesn't make sense.
No,
Did
they
not
weren't
get
hired
budgeted.
though. The last actuals from 22, 21, 2019, they were less than $2,000.
And I can tell you, having seen her W-2 for 23, it was, and for 22 it was
What's what?
$2,000?
excessive overtime.
So
Okay.
how did the
Well-
actuals get reported that way?
I don't know.
So my question to where I was headed was, didn't everyone have to learn this software?
Not everyone
Other
uses
people.
it, yes, not
So
everyone.
other people had to learn the software and didn't charge overtime because they could do it during their regular work hours.
The other individuals that learn the software are what you would consider secondary users of the software.
So it
It
doesn't
is
matter,
not-
they still
it
have
is-
to learn it.
It is not their primary responsibility every day. So what Gene
That has
and
no bearing on what I'm asking.
what Gene and I do is far more intensive in the software than what any other employee in town does.
So you're saying you have greater knowledge of how to use this software than the secondaries?
Yes,
Okay,
and we have greater access within the software to do things
because it's passcode
because of our
protected.
roles.
Well, the others just use it as it relates to their job.
Right,
function.
they
They
make
use
the
it to
invoices in,
budget
check the
and-
budget, and they will be putting their time cards in. Gene and I double check and approve invoices, run payroll, do trial balances, bank reconciliations, a whole host of things.
How much,
Within the software.
since everything is learned, or almost all learned, how much more overtime she's had since this actually came up? We continue to pump in a bunch of money in overtime or not?
We should not know.
All right.
Can we make it a policy that there's no more overtime until you get prior approval?
Are you doing that for specific departments, or are you doing that across the board?
I would do it across the-
Because,
Well, I would be doing that, I would suggest that you do that as a management style, that you say, hey, look, no overtime for administrative employees other than the police department, unless I approve it. I mean, to me, I think that, you're the town manager, you should be
Yeah,
approving the
You
overtime.
want to deliver your budget.
I mean, department heads, if you want to do it that way, you could do that too, but you're in charge of the budget, and you know how much you're going to spend. So here's my question. This classification study, are they going to classify, they're studying our classifications against other classifications, and then they're going to make a determination of where we should change our classifications?
they are studying the jobs our employees do and ensuring the job descriptions are properly drafted. And based on the job description and the federal requirements, will either keep the classification the same or will make recommendations to change the job description and the classification to fit what the employee does and what the classification should be.
And that is under the classification study or the?
Yes, that's under the
or the
classification.
compensation study.
No, that is all under classification.
And
Okay,
you're
so-
saying, based on your experience, you would expect 3 or 4 of the jobs to get reclassed because you've actually never seen typically those jobs.
Right,
I
the
would
only
expect-
salary exempt are the chief and you.
Correct.
The
So the-
lieutenant should be.
Lieutenant should be exempt too.
I would
Yeah, that's
expect
what-
of our listed positions that the building clerk, the deputy town clerk, the treasurer, the dispatch manager, the town clerk, deputy treasurer, the building official, all be classified as exempt. And speaking with Scott, there is a correction. The lieutenant's position is actually an exempt position.
Okay.
Current-
So if you already know that, then why do we need to have a classification study?
It's already exempt.
Because
I mean, if you're really smart about it, you
Yeah.
already know what's going on, then why can't we just do it?
I would
Because
have, what I would have to
Amos
do is I'd have to go through each
might be
job
liability.
description and make those
Well, I get that.
make all those
I mean,
changes.
I look at it as a relatively low premium
Yeah.
to cover ourselves. And I mean, you guys were asking if this is expensive. This is not an expensive study. I'm just telling you, this is a reasonably priced study. Whether we want to do it or not is a different issue, but I would say let's do it. It gives us an insurance policy, basically, that we aren't going to get bit later. So I would go ahead and do it. For another $2,000, they give us comfort independently that our pay levels are okay. For $2,000, I would do that also. I mean, that's the
Can
$14,000.
I ask some questions though about some of the particulars? They identify in both of them meeting with the town's project manager. Who is the town's project manager? Because my point is, it shouldn't be Lynn. If Lynn's part of the, the staff that's being studied, you shouldn't be meeting with her to discuss it.
I guess my feeling on that would be, I kind of don't care who the project manager is, as long as the consultant understands their customer, their client is the commission. To get the job done, they're going to have to work with the staff people, but as long as they understand they're working for us, the report is to us, and they're not working for Lynn. That, to me, that's the important distinction. So that would matter to me much more than.
Yeah, it's not how it's written though. It's written to meet with the town manager, and the town manager is overseeing all of it.
Yeah.
My question, Carolyn, would be, why do you have a concern with my being the project manager?
Because you're studying your own position.
I'm not studying it, they're studying. They're not going to ask me any other questions other than what they ask every other employee in relation to my position. Am I managing, as in setting it up to what days and what times and who they talk to when? Yes. But in terms of the external comparison portion of the study, that has nothing to do with me.
I think to ensure that it's an independent study, I think us being the client is the important thing.
Well, the town is always the
Yeah.
client.
Well,
The
it should be
town-
clear in the contract that
Yeah, the project manager has to be somebody who's actually
has to
what
be
you're
the
doing,
people that
your scheduling.
if you named me the project manager,
Yeah.
I'd have to go to Lynn and say,
Yeah,
I'd have to ask her all the stuff
yeah.
anyway, because I wouldn't know, what the details were. So that doesn't bother me, but I do think it needs to be clear in the contract that they work for us.
And
Well, it says Town of Ocean Ridge. So.
Oh, I
as an
agree. It should be
organization
laid
that
out.
Yeah, but
works-
this is different than just saying, well, everything is,
Yeah.
done by the commission. I'm saying I'd like the contract to say that the consultant reports directly to the commission.
Right, the consultant understands that they report directly,
Right.
like add in a sentence.
I just think that protects everybody. It makes it
So
clear
we
that it's
put it on
independent.
agendas
Should
when we've
give-
got
It should
something.
give Lynn comfort that no one will ever come back and say, oh my God, she, had somebody.
So you get what you're asking for, Lynn, and Andy gets what he's asking for.
I'm
so
fine with having them add that sentence, that the consultant understands that they report directly to the
So-
governing body of Ocean Ridge.
So which one are you gonna do? Which one do you wanna do?
I'm leaving it to Andy.
I would
Well,
do
see,
14.
I gotta tell you, one of the reasons why Maynard got elected, because of his knowledge in this particular field. I think it's very good advice, if we're not gonna take it, that this could be a cheap insurance policy. It really could be, let's face it, somebody sues a town for overtime pay, it's gonna cost us a lot more than $19,000 or $14,000 or whatever the hell it is.
Yeah.
And we're arguing about $14,000, and we just spent $2.5 million?
Well, let me ask you a question, because you've been through this.
And why not? And the biggest thing about this whole study is the compensation part. Because I know that when we come with the budget, we're gonna ask Kelly or Gene or somebody to call all the towns and make sure, and then we're gonna be mad because they didn't call this town, or they didn't call that town. So with the compensation study, we have that in front of us, so when we do the negotiations, even with the police thing, I don't know about the police, because we do that with the union too, and that's usually not,
And the April
that's really
3rd
not something really, and that's every 3 years anyway.
But the April 3rd study does not include the PD.
Yeah.
The original proposal did because of the union contract negotiation coming up, but the commission
Yeah, but
said-
usually union,
Right.
our union lawyer, he fills us in on all
We
that
have a
stuff.
labor lawyer who represents us as well.
Yeah.
Do we have you seen an example of a study that they've done for another similar town, like 2,000 residents, like a similar, budget?
Well, most communities our size would not have a similar budget because they're generally going to have a smaller general fund budget because they would have fewer employees for towns this size. We have a very robust police department that has more employees, and our police department, their budget therefore, which is part of the general operating, is larger than what most.
Okay, so
Smaller
let's
communities.
limit it to population. Is there another small town that they've done such a study for? Classification, compensation?
I thought it was on that.
They did Atlantis. I can
That's
ask
a-
Atlantis.
But it's a city. I'm saying another town like Ocean Ridge.
Where's
I
that
would beg to
list?
differ that there is not another town like Ocean Ridge. There aren't other towns our size that have zero commercial, industrial properties or income coming in that would then also be a barrier island community. Even when the commission talks about comparing us to Gulfstream or Manalapan, we are not, truly comparable because we do not have the commercial industrial component that those communities have.
The key thing to me is that they know how to do classification studies on employees, and they've got skills in that and experience in that. So we can rely on their analysis and their recommendation on changing people from not eligible for overtime to being exempt. So that's the thing that I would care about. Whether the other towns they do have 40 positions like that or 6 positions like that, isn't as important to me. I think, there aren't that many consultants out there that are going to take a $14,000 project like this on. I think.
Nothing would change on the police department's front with classifications. We have the two exemplary, myself and the lieutenant, that's it, everybody else is hourly.
Yeah, so what we should leave the
So we left
police
them
department out of it.
We did.
left them all, yeah.
I know, saying we gotta pick one, we gotta pick something here.
Yeah.
But the compensation study, I think is it's kind of just like it just gives us an idea of what other places are gonna, it's up to us to understand who Ocean Ridge is.
And we don't have to do it
versus-
every year, but it
Yeah.
doesn't hurt. I don't know if we've ever had one done, but this is an independent level set that just says, hey, here's how much.
No, we've just
Other
called,
towns are paying.
we've had a town employee just call the other towns. But I'll go along with that, let these guys do that as well. But we should have the ability to go through their list. When they give us the list of 10 towns, we should have the ability to just simply strike. Because they're not gonna find 10 towns. that
I
apply
will
to
be
us.
happy when they present the potential comps to provide them to the commission for review and removal.
Absolutely, that's a great idea.
Okay,
Well, they're reporting to the commission, right?
so you've been through this before, Anna. So, well, how much protection is there under this insurance policy? Like, let's say we get this done and then they still come after us.
We should probably ask Christie about that, but we have more protection by doing this than if we don't do it.
Yeah.
How much
something
more?
like that.
I don't know.
Come on,
I
say a lot.
I feel like it's a lot because what's your expertise? To say that the commission decided, oh, we're not going to pay them overtime anymore is a lot different than saying professionals who are in this business compared their jobs to the federal requirements and determined that they weren't eligible for overtime. That's a pretty strong. I don't know how many times it's ever happened when you've had a study done that's proven that there's actually been a fine levied. I think that you're probably.
Well, when you do a study, generally they don't come in. It's when you haven't done
It seems kind of
anything
arbitrary.
and they show up and things were not done right. I've been in communities where an employee was misclassified and should have been non-exempt and was classified as exempt, and the fines were over $100,000. And that was an employee that had only worked for us for 18 months. Because it's not a fine that's based on how much they would have earned, it's a fine based on how much they would have earned and whether the Department of Labor believes that we should have been, more on the ball and recognized, whether they think that we intentionally misclassified an employee to avoid paying overtime for a position, things like that.
So on April 3rd proposal, right?
No?
It says handbook. Is that the same as handbook update?
Yes, it's
Okay.
the handbook updates and the comp and class, the comp
So
study.
non-PD.
The comp study
Right,
for the
non-PD, but we don't want PD.
That's what
It's
I
So
said.
it's
this
comp
April 3rd
class.
one takes care of our needs,
Yes.
right? Okay.
That's the one that I would do. I assume for the police, even if we did the study of the police, we're not gonna be able to come in and say, we think our police are just paid wrong, and that's not gonna be very successful.
No, but it would give
Well, we've done that
us,
before.
That's their job,
No,
right?
we've actually done it. No, I paid wrong.
Last time it took us
How'd that work out?
a year and a half.
what it would do is it would give us
Sometimes we shoot out the
parameters.
hip. No
It
pun
gives us
intended.
parameters when we go into negotiation.
All right, so what's the pledge of commission? Let's wrap it up.
I think Anna should have the privilege of making the motion.
Yes, go ahead.
Dave?
I move that we accept the April 3rd proposal for $14,000.
Second.
Motion and second, any other discussion? Public comment? Betty? Okay. All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Meeting adjourned.
We got about 30 minutes till